time no see, Brooklyn.
You are. It's kind of awesome. Yes, you certainly can.
I don't have Spotify. Let me see if I can Google this real quick. Yeah. Shuffle. Open Spotify app. Open whichever song is currently playing into full screen. In the media controls in the bottom playback bar. Cool. Thank you, Google.
Thank you. All right. I'm not ready quite yet. We have to do reading and singing first.
Where's Sibel? Oh, there's Sibel.
Yeah, I do that part. You
want to do it?
Yeah. And then Rob's going to sing, so you can sit for a while.
Oh, okay. This is number 170 in the Gray Hymnal. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our life. Young and old together. We are young and old together, and we are singing for our life. We are young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. Land of many colors. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. Gay and straight together. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing. Yes, thank you. Lives. We are and we are singing for our lives. Gentle, loving people. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives.
Some of you may not know that Holly Near wrote that song. a long time ago, I mean like 30 years ago, still gay and straight, there wasn't bi, queer, questioning. That stuff wasn't out there yet. Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes, you are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time, some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. Good morning. My name is Lucy Malin, and my pronouns are she and her. And welcome to all of us gathered here in the sanctuary and those at home who are watching virtually. Our worship team today is, the worship leader is Reverend Laura. I'm the worship associate. Laura Renshaw is our reader. The Time for All Ages story and music are both being provided by Rob Carlson. Sound and streaming, David Lane. And the board greeter is Kathleen Luck. If you want to now take a minute and turn around and talk to someone you haven't seen in a while and welcome them.
Morning again, Lucy. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. I know I've met you really, but I haven't.
I know I've seen you, but good to find you. Hey, we need them. We need this. Good morning.
We can continue our greetings and talking to each other after the service. I know how fun it is to see people that you haven't seen and be in the same room with other people. We would like to extend an especially warm welcome to those who are here for the first time. We are so glad to see you here. If you'd like to get to know us more, we encourage you to fill out the connection card in your virtual order of service. So if you didn't catch that, if you take a picture of the scanny deal, I don't know what it's called, as you come in, then it will pop up on your phone, your order of service. Let's see. Please join us after this service for coffee and goodies in the foyer. There's a lot happening here at SVUUS, and the Happenings Weekly newsletter online is the best way to stay up to date. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already via the link in the virtual order of service. And there are also a couple more brief announcements. Hawkwatch, our giving partner, will be with us next Sunday at Murray Park to talk about their park, and they will bring hawks for story time and a special opportunity for children and youth to meet them up close. And this is really fun. Kids are very excited. And these are hawks and sometimes owls, raptors that have some sort of injury. So they're staying at a rehab unit, and that's why they'll be able to bring them and share them with us, because they probably wouldn't make it alone, survive with whatever injury it is that they have. Our annual camp out will this year be at Payson Lakes Campground, which is just south of Provo, but up in the mountains, north side of, whatever side of that, of Mount Nebo. Friday, September 3rd through Sunday, September 5th, we will gather as a community for a weekend of outdoor living activities for the whole family. Friday night will be a potluck, Sunday outdoor worship at 9:30 a.m. If you're not a camper, join us for the day, either on Saturday or Sunday. See Kathleen Luck and the Happenings newsletter for details on how to sign up. There will be no worship in the sanctuary that day, only at Payson. Zoom will not be available on that weekend because there's no electricity. And these are great fun. The campouts have been superb in the past. Don't miss it if you have an inclination. The water communion is September 11th. This is our annual welcome back after the summer break service. And it will be at Murray Park at 9:30 for our annual ingathering of water and communion. So if you're out and about this summer now, gather a little bit of water, bring it, and we'll add it to the communal pot, and it becomes our holy water for the year. And after that, we will be meeting in the building, I believe, mostly at 10:30, our normal time. Let's see. We're going to light the chalice now, and Brooklyn's going to help me. We invite you to stand in body or mind or spirit as we say our chalice lighting words, and use our actions if you would like. Those at home are welcome to light a chalice and read the ritual by looking at the chat box. So if Brooklyn will light the chalice. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. Oop. Let's see. Thank you, Laura. Is it going to go? Thank you. You may be seated.
As we gather and settle this morning, I invite you into a moment of awareness about the ground that this building and this community rests upon. These are the ancestral and current homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. And as Unitarian Universalists, we acknowledge the deeply complex history of violence and disenfranchisement that was meted against these peoples of this land and land all over. Maybe my microphone is not on Antoinette. Let me check. That would help. Thank you. So let us commit ourselves to undoing those harms by having an open heart, loving hands, helping hands, a loving heart, and an open mind as we seek to journey toward greater wholeness as a nation that is founded upon the ideals of freedom that have not yet been achieved. This morning we're going to be doing a little bit of an experiment. I know you walked in, and for those of you who have been coming for a while, the chairs are in a different order. I want to assure you that it's going to be okay. Next week, we'll go back to rows, and it'll be more appropriate in that way. We're going to be doing an experiment. Rob and I are going to be your worship leaders this morning. And whenever we do experiments in worship, there is always the chance that you will have an opportunity to see mine and Rob's radical imperfection. So I just ask for you to journey with us in this. We're going to be talking about some difficult topics this morning, some difficult things going on in the world, difficult things going on in this community, and some questions that we might want to bring to that. And I know that we are often used to, or maybe before the pandemic, we were used to being able to use our agency to solve problems. And I think we've all learned in this pandemic that sometimes agency is not as accessible as we might want it to be. And so I'm going to give you a tool as we go into this service today, and it's something that I came upon when I was working in hospice, and it's called a Discernment Bowl. And you go like this with your hands. And inside the Discernment Bowl is all of your questions, your concerns, your desire for there to be a solution and an outcome that makes sense. It's got to get bigger, you know? And so we each have our own discernment bowl. And so as we go through these processes of trying to learn and grow in our own personal spirituality and humanity, we can sort of imagine that we have the discernment bowl. It's a little exercise. You know, you can get a little exercise in church on a Sunday morning. See how long you can hold that. We'll do planks later. And you're going to put your questions and your concerns in that bowl. And you're going to trust the boundary of your spirituality to hold that robustly and resiliently. And we've also put the chairs in a circle this morning. This is our collective discernment bowl. And we're going to be putting a bunch of questions into the center. And you'll have a chance to add your own questions at a certain point. So we're going to journey together. Radical imperfection is the theme. So let's see how this goes. Now we're going to start with a story.
Yeah, I'd like to invite any of our young people and the young at heart to join me here up front for some time together this morning. And I'm going to warn David before I pull this thing out of the... There we go. All right. Feel free to come on up, join me somewhere over here-ish. I've been loving over the last couple of weeks the different approaches that people take when they come up here. That's great. Some crab walking. I love it. Well, good morning to all of you. So good to see you all. So good to be here with all of you. You know, I have to tell you, this past week has been kind of a tough week for me in some ways. There's been just some things going on in my life that have been really, really hard. And I have to be honest with you, there were a couple of times this last week when I was really, really angry. Boy, that's an icky feeling, isn't it? When you feel angry. On the one hand, anger is a perfectly natural and can be a healthy feeling, a healthy emotion. Then, of course, we know on the other hand, anger can sometimes make us think in ways and do things and say things that might be harmful, might be hurtful to ourselves and to other people when we're angry. Yeah. And so I was so grateful this last week when Reverend Laura reminded me of some really wise words that a spiritual leader named Thich Nhat Hanh, I don't know if you've ever heard of Thich Nhat Hanh. He was a Vietnamese Buddhist spiritual leader, and a lot of his focus was on peace and healing. And so here's what Thich Nhat Hanh says about anger. And I noticed that some of you have already taken an interest in what I brought with me, some quizzical looks in your faces. Thich Nhat Hanh says that anger is like one of these. What is this? A potato. Anger is like a potato. Gosh, I guess we need to unpack that a little bit. Have you ever eaten a potato raw? Like, have you ever eaten a potato just like this and like bitten it like an apple? No, right? Generally, we don't eat potatoes raw. Why? Why not? It's dangerous. It is not good for you to eat potatoes raw. What? Sure. Why else might we not eat potatoes raw? Yeah. So a lot of, ickiness. What do we need to do to make the potato more edible? Do you cook a potato? Is that what we do? Do we cook potatoes? Yeah. You wash it first.
And then you put it in a boiling hot water.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So, or potato chips, such a versatile vegetable, isn't it? Yeah. And so Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the potato and anger, saying that, when we're angry, we kind of feel hard and and our hearts feel hard and tough on the outside. And like you all said, it's kind of icky to eat a raw potato, and so it's kind of an icky feeling sometimes when we are angry. And so like you mentioned, Isaac, in Brooklyn, we have to put the potato in water, and we add some heat. And so the water and the heat is what softens the potato and makes it more palpable, right? More good for us. And so Thich Nhat Hanh says that in a way, when we're angry, we sometimes when we're angry just want to feel like, I just want this to be over with. I do not want to be angry anymore. And sometimes that's tough to get through. And Thich Nhat Hanh tells us that, it's okay to be angry, but we need to figure out ways that when we're angry, we can make sure that we take care of our hearts a little bit. And so in the same way that when we boil the potato, the heat and the water softens it, when we're angry, we look for ways that our hearts can be softened and that we might find some wisdom from somewhere, like Thich Nhat Hanh, which helped me think about how I can kind of live with anger a little bit and deal with it in healthy ways. Yeah. Brighton, did you want to say something?
When you boil it in water, I have something to say. If you're angry, you can go take a hot bath.
Yes.
Brighton just expanded my analogy tenfold. Well done. If you are angry, you can take a hot bath. Oh, that was so much better. I should have had you come up here, Brighton. That was so much simpler explained. Thank you very much. Yes, when we're angry, there are things we can do to soften ourselves, soften our hearts, so that we don't let our anger affect us in ways that might be hurtful to us or to other people. And so I would invite you to find ways that when you are angry, to maybe take a hot bath. Maybe go outside and just scream really loud if that's what you need to do. And know that even when you're angry, even when you're sad, no matter what things you're feeling, that you are loved and that there are people who are looking out for you and care about you. And so I hope that you'll remember that. And once again, Brighton, I think remembering the hot bath, right? Calming down. That's a good takeaway. Or yeah, maybe it becomes a stress potato, right? If you all would like, a couple of my friends have some really fun activities out on our playground outside. If you would like to join them for that, you may do that. Otherwise, you are welcome to remain up here with your families. And my friend Melissa, excuse me, her last name starts with a V. I just kind of mashed them together. Melissa will be back there to bring you out to our playground. You can hang on to that potato. Could be. Thank you all for your time this morning, everyone. So good to see you.
This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. And we call that sometimes the 3 T's. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this we are very grateful. Your gifts help us to ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. It is our practice at South Valley to share our worship with offerings with a charitable organization whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our youngest religious explorer selected Hawkwatch, that I already talked about briefly, Hawkwatch International to receive half of our worship service offerings during the months of July and August. Hawkwatch began here in Utah in 1986 and has grown to become a leader in scientific research on raptors and community outreach. Hawkwatch widens both public and scientific knowledge as they gather data on millions of birds all over the western U.S. Please give generously in support of our precious Earth's interdependent web, as well as our young religious explorers here at South Valley who chose this fabulous organization. Please join me in reading the offertory words. They are printed in the order of service. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We will now accept the offering. For those at home, you're invited to use the giving link in the order of service. I invite the ushers to come forward at this time. And Rob is going to play a little interlude.
For all that has been given, may we be truly grateful. May these gifts be a blessing on South Valley and on Hawkwatch. Thank you for your generosity.
Good morning. My name is Laura Renshaw, and my pronouns are she and hers. This morning's reading is called Hymn for the Hurting by Amanda Gorman. Everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddied and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children. Cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a hard time to be alive, and even harder to stay that way. We're burdened to live out these days, while at the same time, blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try. Thus, while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed. into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed right to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost. Maybe everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, but only when everything hurts, may everything change. And so ends our reading.
Some props today. There's a lot of reason for potatoes right now. One of the qualities of potatoes is that, of course, you can't eat them raw, as Rob said, but when you do cook them and accoutrement them with butter and cheese and chives and chili and whatever else it is that makes it delightful and delicious, it's highly nutritious and sustaining. And potatoes are also have an antidepressant quality. Isn't that kind of amazing? And it can be said that anger suppressed and not honored can lead to feelings of depression, hopelessness, and despair. So I think a potato is a perfect metaphor for these times. There are a lot of potatoes. I'm going to name a couple of those potatoes for us right now. And then in a few minutes, I'm going to invite you to come forward and take a potato of your own if you want. And we'll have a little bit of time for maybe 4 or 5 of you to talk about what your potatoes are. Brief, like 30 seconds, brief, not 30 minutes. We don't want to be here till 2 o'clock. I love you all, but we will need lunch. So before I get into that, I just want to talk a little bit more about my experience of my potatoes. When a potato is raw, as it has been when anger first arrives, as in, the Roe v. Wade decision coming down, or the mass shootings that continue to take place in this country, or climate change, sometimes it makes me feel like I want to hurl my potato through the window. I want to hurl the potato at the wall. Maybe I want to hurl the potato at another person or a whole group of people. And I've often thought also that maybe if I can just bury my potato, that maybe that would make it better. But we all know that the nature of potatoes is once you put them under the ground, what do? They sprout and grow more fucking potatoes. And I've tried boiling my potato in a small pot all by myself. There's just not enough water in that little pot. It boils over. So anger, like potatoes, is best not done alone. And this is not an invitation to rehearse our anger together. That often happens in liberal progressive circles and on Facebook. We rehearse our anger and our outrage. Today, we're going to get our Discernment Bowl out. We're going to do something different. We're going to put our potatoes in our water. The potatoes are the raw anger. The water is our intention. And we're going to put some heat, our mindfulness, to that. And we're going to turn these potatoes into something that can nourish this community. Nourish us for the journey ahead, because it's not getting easier out there in the world. It's not getting easier. Gone is the time when we could ignore climate change, if there ever was a time where we were trying to ignore it. 5 or 6 years ago, I gave a sermon in my home church, and I said, You know, scientists say we have 7 to 10 years to turn this around. And my son will be 20, you know, when that time expires. He turns 17 in a month. I have some potatoes about that. And when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I had a lot of potatoes about that. And there are generations of women in this room today who remember what it took to achieve bodily autonomy. And there are pregnant people in Utah who don't have options today or have very limited options. And this impacts every single person who has a body, which when I look around the room means all of us. Whether you have the capacity to carry a pregnancy or not, this impacts us. And we are living in a time when racial justice issues are at the forefront, not just in our media and in our national conversation, but on the front lines of this community. And we have been confused and distressed and trying so hard to do that work, to understand the potatoes that our black and brown friends, neighbors, siblings, and confidants hold if we are not ourselves black and brown. And for those of us who are in privileged skins by color or birth or social status or education status or citizenship status or any other status, and those are all mixed in each of us, we are also called to hold our potatoes around the lack of change, our desire for there to be equity, diversity, and inclusion for everybody. And this congregation is struggling with that. This congregation is struggling with that. Our administrator, Bailey, has tendered her resignation, and she was the first person of color this congregation has ever hired. She's with us for just 7 months. And she has tendered her resignation because she cannot tolerate the microaggressions meted out against her by our congregation. I think Rob and I have some potatoes about that, and I think you probably do too. This is not a time to feel guilty or ashamed. That is not part of the Discernment Bowl. I'm not here to tell you that we did something wrong, even though we have failed. I want to strip us away from that opportunity to rest in guilt or shame, because that is not going to get us where we need to go as a community. That is not going to get us arriving on a shore of equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is really hard work, and we are not the only organization to struggle with this. Most organizations are struggling with this right now. And I do have faith, even though we have harmed Bailey, that we can undo those harms, even if she no longer works here, because she needs to take care of her mental health. So we have a lot of potatoes. So how are those potatoes affecting this community in specific ways? I have a few more potatoes to throw into the center this morning. We've been in a pandemic for 3 years. Everyone is struggling with that pandemic. Inflation is through the roof, housing is through the roof. There's a lot of economic pressure on every generation that's living in Salt Lake City. It's changing under our feet more rapidly than we can keep up with that. And how is that impacting this community? Often in really private ways, because we are not accustomed to sharing our economic pain publicly. We've been trained to keep that private. That's what capitalism does to us. It says, Your suffering must not be seen. This community is struggling, and this is hard to say. This community is struggling a little bit, to put it lightly, with understanding how to be a good employer, with how to manage our finances effectively. And this is not a new story for this congregation. This has been endemic in this congregation for its entire time. And again, this is not about blame, shame, guilt, anything. I'm just describing the story. This community has struggled. And during my tenure here as your minister, we have really worked to do right by our congregation and by our employees. But that has come at a cost, and it has revealed some really tricky things that we need to deal with as a congregation. It's revealed some lack of clarity around our financial reporting. It's revealed some problems with our cash flow, and these resulted in 2 scares over the summer. One, a scare that we were not going to be able to make payroll in June. And 2, we didn't make payroll because we had an error in our new system this week. And our employees got paid 3 days late, including myself. And this is, again, I want to say, this is not about blame and shame. This is about telling the truth. That there is economic pain throughout our congregation and throughout our community. And it's really hard for me to be saying this to you right now, to admit that under my leadership and under my tenure, we have struggled with these issues. That we have struggled to find clarity as a board and as personnel and as finance about how to make our way through this. It's been a challenging summer. There's been a lot of potatoes. It's been a lot of potatoes. It's a part of truth-telling. This is part of what this experiment is pulling back the veil and saying, there is pain here, and let's talk about it. So I'm going to put my potato down. I'm going to take the microphone, and if there's anyone else that wants to come and take a potato, you can either hold the potato and say nothing, or you can hold a potato and say something. I'm going to invite you right now to come forward and just take a potato. Or I will toss the potatoes to you. And it can be anything that's in your heart. It doesn't have to be about this congregation. You can take a potato, John. Yeah. It can be about something that feels undone or unknown in your life. Do you want a potato? Want a potato? All right. Are you going to maybe hand them out one by one? Or are you going to come up and take a potato, anyone?
I'll do just a, oh, is it on?
Yes.
Okay. I'll do just a quick share. John and I have just barely, a couple weeks ago, adopted a new little dog named Pogo, who has just 3 legs. And my potato right now is a lot about, this dog is terrified. He was abused.
You want a potato?
And it's just really hard to try and understand this poor little guy that just wants to hide under the bed.
That's a gross one.
So we're hoping we can pull him out of his shell a little bit and get him so he's not just completely terrified all the time. So
my potato's too big, too big, because it ties so many issues together. The war in Ukraine, it ties together anarchy and autocracy and nuclear dangers global climate change, homelessness, immigration, hunger. What issues doesn't it involve? And how can we here in Utah have any influence on this? I watch the news like if I read the news, then it can't get worse. But it does get worse, so I just keep reading the news. But I've got to do other things too.
A lot of you know that I am a librarian, and I work in a library, and I'm passionate about reading and libraries and education. My potato has to do with the fact that many in libraries feel under attack right now, that there are groups of people that want to censor and take books out. It's happening in Utah. It's happening in school systems and school districts. And at my library, I have staff who worry. And it's even just this morning on the way to church, I had a text message from somebody saying, look at this horrible thing that somebody's saying on Facebook about defunding libraries. So I truly believe that reading exposes you to other cultures, other people. If we have any hope for how to do better in the world, we have to understand other people better. And we need libraries more than ever, not less books, less funding, less use of libraries. So that's my potato.
There is a never-ending stream of injustice and inequity in healthcare. I can not count the number of times I've seen somebody's culture or race or identity affect their care, even though that's not what anybody wants, even though that's not what every organization says, even though there's mission statements and vision and so forth. Just the way we're wired, it happens over and over again. And it's nobody's fault, just the way it is. So I'm not sure there's enough potatoes.
As some of you know, I spent from the late 70s until now fighting for equal rights, abortion rights, lesbian and gay equality, multicultural inclusion, and I really thought, I think, and many feminists, that we were on the road to a better culture, society that cared about people. And this decision by our Supreme Court has made me extremely angry. And I want that anger to turn into something productive, but I'm sort of stuck in a depressive anger. I mean, how could this have happened? And what can we do? We've got such jerks in the Senate and in our legislator, sure, I can't say the word, and it is very, I'm hoping that the younger people are going to take up the fight and lead, and they are. I mean, look what happened in Kansas. I can almost allow myself to be excited about that, but I'm also like, is this just a blip? What is this? And these people who want to take over our country and turn it back to some, I don't know, imaginary dream time, like in the 50s, right after the war or something, where everything was good. People had the GI Bill, they were able to buy houses, they were able to go to school. And that did include some people of color who had served in the services with the GI Bill, but not a time I would want to go back to. So I just want to, the anger is deep. and I think it's righteous anger, but I don't know. It's the helplessness that makes me even more angry. And what can we do? We have people who are supposed to represent us that don't represent us. So anyway, I just want to say about the potatoes, I love to eat the potato skin. So I guess I'm an odd one out, but I'd rather eat the skin than the potato, especially in a nice crispy baked potato. So I always scrub mine extra well. And it's always easy to get a potato skin from somebody because other people don't eat them. But I just trade. You can have the white part, but I want the burnt, crispy skin. So, yeah.
I know I'm not carrying a potato, but I think my potato right now is that I'm 19, so I'm pretty young, that my little sister has only grown up with lockdown drills for active shooting. I was part of the generation after the shooting in Connecticut where those became a thing. I was in that generation where that became a thing, and she didn't know that that was not normal. That's not okay. That is my potato.
So I came out 15 years ago to my family, and it was a very, very rocky road to work with them and to get to a point that I can interact with them and that things were more or less okay. But there's a lot of trauma with that. And a couple years ago, my nephew came out as trans. And I saw my family bring back a lot of those same problems that I had gone through when I had came in. It made me realize that the problems were never solved. They were simply buried. And that there's a lot of, I'm seeing my nephew go through a lot of that pain, both in his siblings too. And politically, there's been the anti-trans bill. BYU, where I went to, was never a bastion for LGBTQ rights, but have actually gotten worse recently, which I didn't think was possible. And see my family support those actions and support those bills and support those politicians that make life so hard for us has been really challenging. And yeah, that's my potato.
So I guess my potato is just that so many things, we had so many challenges, and we just have kicked them all down the road, all of them, healthcare and everything, and the climate change. And I tell my girls are like, oh, they're getting, like, they just want to move to Canada. It was like where they can see a place where people have actually solved, possibly tried to solve healthcare, tried to solve something, tried to actually do things. And I try to tell them, I say, there was a time in our country where we did solve things. We did go to the moon. We did build, have problems and actually try to work together to solve those. And they just cannot hardly picture that. And so that's my potato, is just that is to be able to come together and actually solve something is something that it should be something that they can hardly picture is really sad.
I found myself crying a lot because I can't always watch the news anymore of all the things that are happening, and I'm trying not to lose hope. And it can be Ukraine or the homeless people. When I read in the Tribune, that they don't know where to stay, and they move them and shoo them away from place to place, and I feel like it's really been hard, and I feel lonely and isolated because it's like we're broken, and I just hope and pray that we will be able to get through this.
I made a list of my potatoes. I'll make it fast. One potato is with Granite School District for giving us a day and a half of teacher prep time and throwing us in meetings the rest of the time. I have a potato with COVID for taking my brother away from me a year ago. I have many potatoes with my husband's ex-wife for us trying to support their 10-year-old daughter who is questioning her sexuality and her gender identity and saying that she's too young and what are we doing? And anyway, and all of the other damage that she's created with all of those kids or helped create bringing them up. I have a potato with myself for the anxiety I have around my 17-year-old stepdaughter, which I keep trying to tell myself is not my fault. Sorry, Laura. Letting go of the guilt is hard. I think that's probably good. Anyway, thank you.
My potato is actually something that maybe can be solved or at least worked on. Like many of you, I just heard this morning about Bailey. I didn't know that. And I'm very distressed, and I think that for me, it would help to know how we can improve and do better, not naming names, that's not what I mean, but how can we improve our interaction with people who are of different colors or whatever from us? That's my potato. And of course there are lots of others, but that's the one I'm thinking about right now.
Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability and for your willingness to put those potatoes into our collective discernment bowl. Let's sing for a couple verses of our opening song. I'll step back a little bit. Let's sing, and then we'll talk about what comes next in our potatoes. Gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our in that big book that many of us know from our childhood that we in this community refer to as the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Testament, there are a lot of stories about potatoes. A lot of stories about potatoes. And there is a lot of wisdom that can be gained from some of those wisdom tales about how not to deal with potatoes. And a few about how maybe we can deal with potatoes. One of the good potato stories that I particularly love is the story of Job. Because through that story, Job experiences suffering upon suffering upon suffering, and his friends come to his side. Friends come to his side and tell him what he ought to do with that anger and that suffering. And all of their answers fall short. They try telling him that maybe if he was a better person, if he loved God more, then maybe God wouldn't punish him. Or maybe God is giving him this suffering so that he'll be a better person. And the list goes on and on and on. Everything happens for a reason, is one of the advice giving from one of his friends. My friends, we know that those things do not eradicate suffering. They simply push the potatoes under the ground. They simply isolate the person holding the potato and make them feel like their suffering is their fault. We are a different kind of community. We are the community that at the end of the story, when Job finally goes to God and God answers back and God says, "This is a complicated world. You're not the center of it." And Job goes, "Yeah, so what I need to do is build community." Because we cannot change the complexity and the nuance and the unfairness of this world, and none of it is there to make us a better person. None of it is there to be, even though we might be able to learn something along the way when we are suffering, that is not the purpose of suffering. That is not the purpose of anger. The purpose of anger is to let us know when our boundaries have been crossed, when our integrity has been compromised. And we collect our anger together and we put it in our collective pot and we turn the water on and we bring our mindfulness and our focus and our intention, then insight can come from the boiling of those potatoes, and we may nourish ourselves and one another with the goodness of that community, of that shared experience. And once we nourish ourselves with our potatoes, then we can get to work. But we have to remember that we cannot eat our potatoes raw. That we have to bring them into community, acknowledge that they're there, put them in the pot, and turn the heat way up. And that is how we will sustain ourselves through this time and this place, by paying attention to our potatoes. So I'm going to invite you now into a moment of silence and reflection, and then I'm going to have Lucy give us another reading about how we might also attend to our potatoes. So join me now just in silence. And if you're not comfortable closing your eyes and meditation is not your thing, feel free to leave your eyes open. One way of also doing meditation is just to focus on the palm of your hand and slowly open it and close it. Open it and close it. So either do this or focus on your breathing in and out and know that we are breathing together. May the fullness of this silence tend our weary and tattered hearts to wholeness.
Before I go into the reading, I just want to say this is my community. And looking out at you, people I've known for, I'd say I joined in 87, so a long time ago. People I don't know at all. But I know I could call on almost any one of you if I needed help. And this community to me is family. The reading that I'm going to do is the Covenant of Right Relationship. And in the earlier days of this community, we wrote this together. And we are a covenanting church, which means we make our own agreement with God or Spirit or whatever it is. And nobody needs to be there to be between us and the sacred. We are that. So our mission, and this took months to write. Every word was argued about. We are a community of hope for religious explorers who wish to transform our world into a more just, compassionate, and sustainable place. We embrace diversity and provide for creativity, spiritual growth, and the celebration of life. Our covenant is, we join together, that means, to build a religious community that is guided by love, sustained by respectful relationships, and committed to action to make a better world. We celebrate this common purpose whenever we gather, and we do our best to abide by this covenant. And it's, one of our principles is that we respect the inherent dignity and worth of every person. And when I see a homeless person on the sidewalk and I walk around them, what does that mean? It means that that is a really hard thing to achieve. And we just have to keep trying and knowing what is right and go after what is right for us and for our wider society. I'm sorry I shouldn't be preaching here, but that's the end of the reading.
We're never going to be perfect at this, Lucy. That's what I said, radical imperfection. Radical imperfection. We're going to make as many mistakes as we can, as quickly as we can. And then we're going to love each other back to recovery and wholeness until it's time to get up tomorrow morning and make as many mistakes as we can before 8 a.m. That's my commitment to you. So now, as a final act, all those potatoes that are out there, we're going to put them in the big pot. Rob's going to join us and lead us in singing Filled with Loving Kindness. And this is just the potatoes might not all fit in here. You could put them around here, but they're just going to be a symbol for us to remember that this is a safe place to have potatoes, and that it's also okay not to have the answers. We don't have the answers. And today is not a day for answers. Today is a day for creating that discernment bowl. So as you feel so moved, feel free to bring up your potato and put it in the bowl.
And as we speak of imperfection, this is my first introduction to this song. This is 1031 in the Green Hymnal. And so if you are familiar with this song, please sing louder than me. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be well.
Please remain standing as you are willing in body, mind, and spirit, and join us in our actions as we extinguish our chalice. The words are in your order of service, but you may know them by heart. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet again.
All right, well, this is one of my favorite barn burners from the Teal Hymnal, number 1030. It's Sia Hamba, and we will do the first verse in the traditional Zulu, which is Sia Hamba Kukenyen Kwenkos. Yeah, if you're able, let's have a stand. Sia hamba kuken yen kwenkos. 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 Sia hamba, oh, sia hamba kuken yen kwenkos. Sia hamba, oh, sia hamba kuken yen kwenkos. We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. Sia hamba kuken yen kwenkos. 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 Sia hamba, oh, sia hamba kuken yen kwenkos. Sia hamba, oh, sia hamba kuken yen kwenkos. Nice. Thank you. Very nice.
All right, if you are comfortable reaching and holding hands for the benediction, you can. If you're not quite comfortable because it's just not that comfortable yet for you, for COVID or whatever reasons, you can drop your hands. Friends, we are here doing a radically inclusive project called Unitarian Universalism, an intentionally pluralistic community that makes a lot of mistakes, but we do them in love. So as you go forth today, be gentle on yourself and one another, and know that this community is here to sustain you for the journey ahead, no matter how many potatoes you have. Go forth now in peace, and we have a very fun postlude for you. So hold on one second while I push play. One thing that you might not know about me is that when I was becoming a minister, I also taught spin. And so I would bring people into a dark room and make them sweat. I'm not going to make you do that today, but here's a little treat for you, just because I can. Have a great morning this morning.